So welcome to TechnoDadLife, where we build, learn, and create as a community. And on today's episode, we're going to be installing OMV5 on a Raspberry Pi 4. And so there were a lot of difficulties doing this, and some things didn't work yesterday, and now they've been fixed and they're working today. So your mileage may vary on this, but it's probably going to work better actually than it did for me when I first did this. So what we're going to be doing is installing Raspbian, number one, onto our Raspberry Pi 4. And then we're going to be doing the Debian install on top of the Raspbian, which works for the most part. There were some errors when I did it partly yesterday, partly today, but some of those errors actually that are in the video have already actually been fixed today through different members of our forums and other things. So definitely a shout out to those guys and everybody who works on Raspbian and Openmediavault. You guys are doing an awesome job. And if you like this video, make sure you like my video and subscribe, and actually go to the forums and give lots of people thumbs up who've been helping this. And here we go now. And a special thank you to all my patrons who, without your support, this channel would not be possible. Thank you. And if you haven't already, take a look in the description and you can find out about sponsoring this channel too. So what we're going to be doing is installing Openmediavault 5 to a Raspberry Pi. And in this case, we're going to be using a Raspberry Pi 4. And so we're not going to be needing actually anything from Openmediavault. What we do need is the first thing is we need a Raspberry Pi. And so this is a good one. And the nice thing about this one is it actually has a fan. So the Raspberry Pi 4 has been having some overheating issues, so it's good to get a case with a fan. And anything I mention in this video, I'll leave the links down below in the description. And you need to get a micro SD card, and it's recommended you have at least 8 gigabytes, but you can either get a 16 or a 32 gigabyte, which seem to be about the smallest ones you can buy at the moment. We're going to need these directions. So this is install OMV5 on Debian Buster 10. Google this so you find it. So once we log into our Raspberry Pi, we're going to be using these directions. Next, if you haven't already, download Bella Anna Etcher and install this. This is how we're going to burn our Raspbian image to our SD card. And then finally, go to raspberrypi.org. Go to the Downloads tab, and you're going to download Raspbian, and just click on that to download that. Once that's done downloading, open Bella Anna Etcher, select your image, click on Raspbian Buster, click Open, and then if you haven't already, insert your SD card, and then click Flash, and then wait for that to install and verify. Once that's done, it automatically unmounts, so you can just pull out your SD card. And now we're going to head over to our Raspberry Pi and insert the SD card. Okay, so now we go to our Raspberry Pi, and you can see this is a Raspberry Pi 4 because it has the blue USB. And so we're going to take our micro SD card and we're going to just insert it here in the bottom, hopefully. There we go. And now we're going to plug all the cords in. And you can see the Raspberry Pi loads very fast. And so we just need to do a few things here to set it up before we actually get into the nitty-gritty. So now we're to the desktop. Click Next. And then change to your country and your language and your time zone. And then click Next. Enter a password. And update the software, and then that will take a few minutes. So the next thing you need to do is open a terminal, and you would press that button there. I already have mine open here. And then we need to install a web browser, or actually not install, but start a web browser right there. And then we're going to search for install OMV5 on Debian 10 Buster, and then you want to put guide in there too. And then this post will show up. And so this is the post about how to install OMV5 on Debian Buster, but it also works on Raspbian, which is what we just installed. And so we're going to use this to install OMV5 on Raspbians. And so the first thing we need to do is copy this line right here. Whoop. And then paste it. And then once that is pasted in, then we hit enter. And now we're going to copy the rest of this post where it says deb and then to EOF. And then we're going to paste that here. And then hit enter. And that brings us back to the command line. Oh, and so what you'll notice here is right here it says permission denied. And so what that means is it didn't actually work. So we're going to do two things. First, we're going to type in clear. That will clear the terminal. And so for this to actually work, we need to type in sudo su, then hit enter. And now you can see we're root, and we're at root instead of just pi. And so now everything that we paste in there will work. So let's try that again. Hit enter. Okay, we're back to our sources list. Copy that, paste, and now you can see we didn't have an error. Oh, actually I have to enter first. And now there was no error. Now if we go back to this post and we scroll down a little bit more, we're going to hit display all. And so we're going to copy these first lines one by one and then just paste them over here. And then hit enter. And export Debian front end. Paste and then hit enter. Export apt. Copy, paste, and then hit enter. And so the wget here is going to get an archive key for us. We're going to paste that, hit enter, and there you can see is our key. And now we're going to add that key to our list. So we'll copy that, or to our key ring, I should say. Hit enter. And now what we're going to do is get all the packages we need to download Openmediavault. So we're going to do the copy apt-get update. And then hit enter. And that will just take a few minutes to update the packages list. And now this next section here, we can copy it all at once. Oops. And then paste it. And then hit enter. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is copy OMV config dbadmin populate and post that in the terminal. And so this next step might take quite a long time, so just be patient with it once you start it. And finally, copy cat/etc issue and paste that into the terminal. And then you're all set to go to your regular computer and then log into your OMV machine. And so here we are at my router, and you can see there again is the same IP address. And so what we can do here is actually just double click it and go to. The login is admin and the password is Openmediavault. And then click login. And down here you can see we are now on our ARM processor. And so let's just go through how we're going to set this up. So first we're going to click on General Settings on the left, and we're going to change Auto Logout to 1 day, otherwise we'll log out every 5 minutes. Click Save, and then click Apply and Yes. Next we're going to check the time and date, and those are correct for me. We're going to skip network notifications. You can set this to notify you of different settings. Power management. So we're going to, if you have a power button on your Pi or your power cord, you can set it to shut down if that power button is pressed. Then click Save, Apply, and Yes. And then if we go to Schedule Jobs under Power Management, if we click Add, we can set times and days when the computer will either stand by, shut down, or reboot. We're not going to do that right now. Monitoring is enabled by default. If you have any certificates, you would add them here for SSH or SSL. Schedule jobs is for cron jobs, and you can see it actually looks very similar to the one under power management. But if you scroll down, this is where actually, in the command line here, this is where you would add any scripts that you want to do. Under Update Manager, this is where we would add in updates. And so basically what we would do is, if none show up, you can click Check. In this case, if we want to put all the updates in, we would click that. It will highlight all the updates. And then we would click Upgrade. Then under Settings, we can install different updates such as pre-release updates and community maintained updates. Plugins, this is where we would do different plugins. I have a separate video about plugins. I would suggest you do that. I would suggest you look at that. Next, we'll go to disks, and this is where we would add an external hard drive. So we need to add an external hard drive for the Raspberry Pi. And you can see the first one here is my micro SD card. The second one here is a SSD that I installed. So we're going to click on that. We're going to click Wipe and Yes. And we're going to click Quick. And then once that's done, we'll click Close. And that's the first thing we need to do in order to be able to use a disk on the Raspberry Pi, or actually an Openmediavault. Under RAID management, so basically RAID isn't designed to work over USB, so I would not suggest doing that. Next we'll go to file management, and we're going to create. Select the drive that we just erased. We're going to label that data, and then we're going to click OK. If you want to change the file system, you would do that right here. And then click Yes. And so that again is going to wipe your hard drive, or at least check your hard drive, and create the file system. Once that's done, click Close, and then we're going to click on it to highlight again, and we're going to click Mount, then Apply, and Yes. So now our disk is mounted, and it's ready to actually put folders on it. Next we're going to create a user, and so we'll click on User, and there's already a user named Pi. If you want to add a different user, you would click Add, then type in a name, and you have to have an address and a password. Next we would go to Groups, and we would decide which groups we want to add that person to. And so probably at minimum you want Samba Share, and then you can add in things like sudo and SSH if you want to add those things. And then once you've figured out what you want to do, click Save, then Apply, and Yes. And then we're going to go to Shared Folders, and we're going to add some shared folders. So the first one will be our media folder, and select a device. And so for ours, our folder is going to be completely open. So on our network, anybody can access it. So we're going to put everyone read write. If you want to learn how to do private folders, look at my public and private folders video. Then click Save, and Apply, and Yes. Next, if we want to sync or have that folder available on our local network, we're going to click on SMB CIFS, and we're going to enable that. And just make sure your work group is the same as that on your system, and then click Save. and apply and yes. Next we're going to go to shares and we're going to click add a share, and we're going to select our folder we just created, media, and we're going to click public guests allowed, and then we're going to click inherit permissions, and we're going to click save, apply and yes. Now if we go to our network folder on our Windows PC, we can see the Raspberry Pi is now there. We double click it, we have access to it, and we can go in the folder and we can create a new folder, so we have read-write access. Now we're going to go back up to the top and we're going to go to Update Manager, and we're going to actually update all those packages, and so this will take a while, so we're going to skip through this part. So what you would do is click it and then click Upgrade. So one thing when I found when I tried to just update this, last time I did this I didn't have to update, is that it breaks this package right here. And so when you go to update, just uncheck, there's two packages that reference this, and then it will update fine. So next we're going to go to omvextras.org and then go to the guide section, and we're going to scroll down. And what we're going to do is copy this here and SSH into our server, install Openmediavault Extras. And to install Openmediavault Extras, you need to go to putty.org and download Putty and install this. And this will give us the ability to SSH into our machine. Next we're going to go to Putty, open that, and type in our server address. Mine ends in 148. Click open, and you might have to confirm that. Then we're going to log in as Pi and put in our password for our Pi. And then once we're logged in, we're going to type in sudo su and then hit enter. And now we're logged into as root into our Raspberry Pi. So next we're going to copy this bash command here. Then we're going to paste it into our Putty and then hit enter. So once that's done, we're going to go back over to our Openmediavault server. And then we're going to refresh the page, reload it. And now you can see Openmediavault Extras is there. And so we're going to do a couple different things here. We need to change this so that our Docker is on our external hard drive. So we're going to put in shared folders / media. We're going to use Portainer. We're going to enable the extras repo. And then we're going to save this. Next, what we're going to do is install Docker. And we do that just by clicking on Install Docker. Once that's done, click Close. So next, let's go over to plugins. And so for the sake of this video, I've already actually installed them, but I'll show you what we need to do. So we need to click on the flash memory plugin to install that. Mine has a green dot next to it because it's already installed. And then we're going to install one other one. And that is reset perms, and so that will make it so you'll be able to reset permissions easily. And then click install, and that will install. Once that's done, two things will happen is you will see the flash memory plugin here. So it is already working, so you can completely ignore this notes optional section. I've done this. If you don't ever get everything perfectly right, your system will be read-only and it will create lots of havoc and you'll have a heart attack. So I don't suggest doing that unless you're very daring. Next, if we go to our shared folders, now we can see we have a Reset Permissions tab, and we click on Reset Permissions. And so what this does is we can click on a shared folder and we can change the permissions of that folder. And then the next thing that we would do is just click save, and that will share the folder with the new permissions. If you want to learn more about Portainer, I've done a separate video on that, and that will show you how to get up and started with Portainer if you've used the old Openmediavault Docker program. And that's it for today. If you found this helpful, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.